Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 11/11/25. Uh, I now open this circle with a true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So, Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda so that we may have this conversation in a great understanding. And we ask for malevolent or mischievous type beings to be swept away so that we may have this conversation in peace. And with that, and with great blessings that we always send your way, we say so be it.
And so be it. Today's topic was actually one that was requested via Facebook texting. Josh, this is the one you requested. So, this one is dummy timelines, dud timelines, is how he put it. So, what that is, and I did not realize how synchronistic this was. Here, Josh, you doing this on, let's see, what the date that you sent this in? Monday, the 10th of November. So you sent this in today, or at least our date and time, from where he is. But today had a session that also had to do with dummy and dud timelines. When people think of dummy and dud timelines, they generally think of pretty much one thing, and that's the Montauk project. So, because the whole situation with, let me get the name right again, Duncan Cameron, he is the one that was on board the USS Eldridge. I'm not going to read through this his entire life story. There is a page that I'm going to screen share this right now just so people can go find it themselves. If the thing would work. There we go. So, right here. This page right here, this devermore.net page right here. This is actually, when you go to the search engine, this is the first one that pops up if you say Duncan Cameron Montauk. And this one here, this tells his story where he was on the USS Eldridge. He's the one that time traveled, and him and his brother, Edward, time traveled. I believe it was, yeah, his brother. And that's the one that the whole story was based off of. So there was one passage in here that really had me going. There were a couple of them. A friend pointed this one out earlier about the monster that's at Montauk. And somebody tried to say that it was a Sasquatch that was the monster that tore up the underneath Camp Hero. Now, is there a Sasquatch group that hangs around that part of Long Island? Absolutely, there is. You remember, anybody that pays attention to the world of Sasquatch actually knows that there was one by the name of Uram that actually spoke that he's actually around that area, him and his group. But was it the Sasquatch? No, it was an egregore, basically an intense focus that created a monster. This may sound familiar. If people, and I will take this off share screen while I explain this. If people remember the movie Forbidden Planet, where this man uses an IQ enhancing machine left by alien species called the Krell. And what happens is he enhances his intellect, but he also enhances this kind of predatory consciousness within. Kind of like how Roddenberry would say, this is how people are without their normal intellect. The writers of the Forbidden Planet went the other direction and went that it boosted the ego too much, and therefore it was an amplification or an egregore or a poltergeist. I can see how either one would go. But with this, because of the time travel projects done at Montauk, there were these things called paradox timelines, where there were versions of a person that were the opposite of who they are here. that this particular person that I was mentioning, Duncan Cameron, you can go back and read that entire report, but there is one area of this I wanted to focus on. This was the report that was given about him at the Montauk Project. This was post him sitting in the chair, by the way. And if people also remember Marvel, where they did all the branch timelines, and also Time Tracks, where they did all the branch timelines and things of this nature. But in Marvel, what happened when somebody diddled with time travel? There was also a character named Mordo in Doctor Strange that also said the bill always comes due. This actually has to do with that very concept. And I may even call the show that, because, like we said, the warnings for the spells, this one actually applies, and the bill always comes due. So this concept is where you have Tony Stark invent time travel in Endgame. What does he become in the multiverse? Doom. So you see the polar opposites. Somebody was trying to say, when you diddle here, it diddles back. Basically the same with He Who Remains. You had Victor Timely become He Who Remains, and then He Who Remains' opposite was Kang. Let's see how that works. This is how somebody in the projects had to have written those scripts, because of this key factor right here. Background history. The character sheet given here is not for the Duncan Cameron, but for a Duncan Cameron, a variant like you see in Marvel. It presumes Duncan is a member of the Montauk Project and has been working with the project for some time. His exact origins are left up to the GM. He could be ex-Navy, much like the original Duncan, a former operative for the CIA, a project scientist, or simply a promising young psychic recruited by the company backing the Montauk Project. Note, this character sheet presumes the project has witnessed most, if not all, of the events given for the history of the Montauk Project. This next part here I will read, because this one is pertinent to this specific discussion, and this one about the dud, dummy, and paradox timelines. This is a tell right here for this. Personality motivation. This version of, an emphasis on version, of Duncan Cameron is presumed to be lacking in any serious consideration of right and wrong. He enjoys a sense of power the chair brings him and is addicted to its use. He also looks down on those he manipulates, considering them little more than playthings for him to toy with. The experiments with mind control and the manipulation of time have affected thousands of lives, some of them adversely, but none of this matters to Duncan. All he is concerned with is the advancement of science and the further exploration of the Montauk chair abilities. Now, this is contrary to, let's see, what people know of him. Granted, a narcissist can hide a lot of things, but this is different. This is vastly different. And I will tell you why I believe that here in a moment. I will give a little bit of the backstory. Alexander Duncan Cameron, the primary psychic used in the Montauk chair during the experiments known as the Montauk Project, passed away at 9:33. You see where the numbering came in there. On May 9th, the numbering again of this year, 2019. A lot of nines in there. He had been suffering from prostate cancer at this time. Born June 29th, 51, passed at the age of 57. Now, what also does this remind you of? Anybody plays anything in the video game world? This is the Elder Scrolls, where there was the thing called Time Break, where they created an is and is not. And you remember Hajamal talking in the world of Sasquatch on the ises and is nots, and the paradoxes of basically infinite questionable choices is what he called it. So with that, in the game series, there is an is and is not. Is Tiber Septim the god Talos, or is he not? It's both. Is Manny Marco King of Worms character a god, or is he a man? It's both, because of the is and is not. A paradox. what also did Hajjamal say about those that went through the time travel project? And this is true. Those went through Pegasus, that went through Montauk, any of them. You step through a portal, you're entering the multiverse, the infinite multiverse. You're getting is's and in's nots. You go into your 20 back SSP. You were there, but you were not. So it creates a paradox. The oversoul drops both those in the same I am presence, and the person goes insane. So what? Because you step to the portal. This is why they use children, because they were less susceptible to that. A few of them came back with their bolts a little loose, more than a few. But with this is what this generates. You skim the timeline. You get in that chair and you go, say, to what you believe is the future, or you try to prevent certain things where you've lost power. You go back and even influence, and this is what happened in this scenario, where they went back went back and had it to where let's see if I can get it right. Went back and plan at the time was to actually make sure that believe he had another son that then could another Duncan be created in within the time travel project, because there was another variation that was more compatible with the project, you see. But also, just like in the Montauk Project book, which I have not read. I haven't read any of these things, by the way. I just go off to my own experiences and what I've looked into, and it usually matches. About the guy who tried to go back and basically kill his own father before he was born. He comes back to this time, he's hit by a car and gets killed. That's time rebalancing itself. With this, though, what happened? This is he goes along. He looks somewhere in time. What happens? You have paradox timelines. Paradox timelines. From the viewing of things, out comes the result, or out comes the its opposite. Or if you're looking at a particle, looking at a wave, it turns into a particle in a wave. When you're looking at, if you're not looking at Schrodinger's cat, it's both dead and alive at the same time. What happens when you look? Something, your own expressiveness, your own view of reality comes with you. And then your own view of reality comes with you. And therefore, its opposite also travels with you. Marvel would call this an incursion, where you're encoding and decoding your own reality. You're stepping into another parallel universe. Therefore, you're bringing your muddy footprint with you, and therefore causing an incursion, which I don't believe the multiverse is that fragile, folks. I'm sorry. Just like what Q said in the Q and the Gray episode of Voyager to Janeway. You're not actually seeing the Civil War. You're actually just seeing what you comprehend. Go watch that. That is where that comes from. But with this, what does it generate? It generated another variant somewhere in one of these paradox timelines where he's suffering, or or he's evil. What happened? You can trace a quantum footprint back to its point of origin, and voila, you have this other version of Cameron, or Duncan Cameron. Also, timeline alterations. What happens? Also, you come back here, what is also sometimes in the space with you, another version. Because you've altered something, you're coming back, you're now in that particular timeline by which you've created. Just like the schism, like they show in Back to the Future, we're in this schism because of an alteration, but only in this instance, think trillions of little hairs, or little fibers, like little hairs on your arm here. Mandela effect rectifies a lot of these. Now, Time Core, when they course correct some of this, they think, optimum word think, they're recalculating is actually correcting things. Sometimes it's making it worse, or it's being unduly cruel to whomever you happen to be as this variation. They could be stagnating you because of something over here that they believe they are course correcting. So with this thing, the Duncan Cameron, I'm trying to actually narrow this down a little bit. This whole thing with Duncan Cameron, the multiverse regurgitated its opposite. That's why in the Quantumania movie you saw so many variations of He Who Remains, because that one created all its opposing opposites, all its variations genetically and physically and energetically. So, I know the multiverse gives people a headache, and so it should in this, because infinite diversity, infinite combinations, you don't necessarily need to bring all that into your reality. But the reason I brought this up, other than Josh bringing this up as a show topic, they showed this in Endgame, where Bruce was saying when they reset the Infinity Stones, he was going to put the timelines back where they originally were. Not snipping like the Gardner family did for Time Core and or gardening the timelines where the family all up the East Coast, gardening timelines so that this country formed the way we know it as today. Or the Sverdlov family, same difference, offshoots, branches of a tree. How can I put this? They're really starting to wipe me here. When you start to tamper, you create monsters that you hadn't counted on. You create focuses from multiple versions of yourself within the same clusters, some suffering, some good, some stagnant, some okay. They all believe they are the expression at the moment in time focused on one goal, and that was the chair. What happens? An egregore is formed by a group focus. What if that group is you? That's where that egregore at Camp Hero came from. It eventually was always going to come back as a variation of himself and come back and destroy the project, because the time had to heal. It had to consume itself. It was always going to consume itself. This is what will happen to those time travel projects in the end. Remember, and if anybody in sessions remembers over the years, I always say their own projects will eat them alive. This is exactly what it is. This is what they've wrought from this. Why do you think they're so anal retentive about the 20 and backs? They know if they don't return somebody past a certain time, not only will they go insane, but they will generate variations of them, will fractalize and generate this egregore that will eat them all alive. This is because it's a group focus, but it's one, many in one, focusing on an egregore that's insane and consumes all of it because it's trying to correct history. They're trying to correct and heal time. Just like the Earth took Neanderthal consciousnesses and integrated them they were an invasive species, integrated them into the Earth as something that would consume death energy and do a cleaning job. Think of something similar to that, but the egregore focus, that is a group focus, creating a tulpa. Tulpa is an individual by one and many. So just like the misconception when people like say if you say you're a we, a they, them, everything, you're suddenly greater. No, it's an is and is not multiverse of madness, acid trip from hell right there, because you're an I am presence. You are you as you shift timelines. But with paradoxical ones, they're all focused on that same task: good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all of it. Egregore. Now, why did I say it like this? When I did my session earlier, Duncan Cameron came through. I intentionally reached out to him. What did I find? I found a ton of versions of him, completely unstable. I tried to reach out to that one that died, as the older man in year, let's see, yeah, it was 2019. I tried to reach out to him. What did I get? For a little while, I got a stable person. What else did I get? every other variant and variation that was created because of that damn chair. I probably have a few myself. Anybody that's been through the time travel programs has it orbiting them like a moon. And if you've also done a 20 and back along with the Montauk chair, you got double whammied. It's like the Pike character in Strange New Worlds, or Discovery, excuse me, that grabs the time crystal and the Klingon tells him his timeline is locked in, and he tries to alter it and it creates something worse. Who do you think wrote that sequence? That is somebody that's been in the projects. Because you try to alter a thing, it starts to create all these freaking fibers and hairs, and or in the timeline you're in makes something worse. They tried to say that was responsible for the Romulan War and that, all that other horse shit. I don't completely agree that the martyrdom thing had to take place in that. That I think is propaganda. The other part is, will it splice and do all this crap? Yes. If that got too technical for people, I'm sorry, but this is what I saw. I eventually had to remove him. I couldn't handle his energy. He was too off like this. He wasn't a fixed point. He was the embodiment of the mini multiversal version of himself. People that were in those projects, when they were fused into the walls and things like that on the USS Eldridge for the Philadelphia experiment, they had passed through the time vortex, like they see in Doctor Who. Where Doctor Who got the idea for this from is they showed the master character going insane by looking into the time vortex. He was a child when that happened. They were making reference to these projects. I found out the phone booth thing is a portal. It was actually considered a gag or a joke. Portal, phone, listen for tone, listen for beeps, listen for this, for the different messages. These are references to V2K as well. So people think it's higher frequencies. It's actually the V2K beeping in your ear the whole time. These are references to these things. And phone booths, Matrix is another one, used them as phone booths for exits and entrances. These were entrances and exit points for time travel projects and military projects, and also regular projects where they would use pay phones and phone booths for getting a hold of their contacts in regular non-time travel stuff. So there is kind of a running gag going with that in the regular circle. I was always curious as to what the phone booth was. Now I'm not curious anymore. So last point. When I started looking into this more, I started getting contacted by a group that I've personally found familiar, but I didn't hear them. I saw a prompt, a computer prompt in my head, a little window about that big, right over the third eye on the my right hand side, over the right eye. And what happened was this person was responding to yes and no questions on a computer prompt like you'd see on Tron. And I won't get into the Tron discussion right now. That's for GIC. We're doing one called the Meta and the Tron at some point. That is going to be about the Tron accuracy and all that at some point here. You're going to see it in close proximity to this when you see this. I kept seeing this, and these people felt very familiar to me, like they were in an operational booth somewhere. And you knew when people were laughing because you felt the energy go up. You knew when, because I felt like I had a camaraderie with whomever this was. Like I knew them, but I didn't. Again, paradox. So, do I know that individual? Yes. Do I? No. So, you can consult that that episode of The World of Sasquatch, where Hajamal talked to the infinite multiverse of what was it? Infinite questionable choices. That's one about, but he talked about infinite questionable choices. This talked about a lot of this as well. But I wanted to bring that up. This is kind of a segue into that Tron talk. If you have any other ideas for the Tron talk, let me know. And some questions that can go with it. I can put those with it to do channel with. But I know we went on a while, so dear, if you want to add to this.
I think what I'm curious about in this conversation, because we've talked about it before, about people that have had experiences and they may have altars and different things
Mhm.
and
They're
things that
from
have been
these
out
areas,
there,
yeah.
and you know what I mean, creations and what we're talking about partly now. And that, remember the concept of, you do not necessarily want to integrate all of this. What you want to do is have
No.
the oversoul take it on as a totally different experience. And I think what you've been,
Still part of the oversoul experience. So,
right,
yeah.
it's still part of the oversoul, but can you imagine again how impossible it is to bring all of those different experiences into one I am presence with
Can't.
sanity? It doesn't happen because it's way too much, and or the personalities could be so different that the approach would be, do not necessarily integrate, but allow for the oversoul to have it as a shared another totally different experience, no different than you're having different experiences in the multiverse in other areas.
Mhm.
But again, in the bigger sense of picture, it sounds like, again, when we're talking about the opposite experiences also being created, is that it's like it seems to be like a very delicate balance that the oversouls do to keep balance.
Mhm.
So whenever it's having all the different versions. So if you create a new one, it feels it's obliged to create all of the different balancing parts of that.
Yeah.
So if you were
Duality. Yeah.
if you then went somewhere and started to create a new, let's just say, persona based on whatever the factors, then the oversoul automatically goes into this. Now all these other variations are going to exist because in the end, when you pull back at the highest level, there's a balance.
Mhm.
So, but that was not necessarily, you know, part of your intended original why you came into this I am present all the time.
Mhm.
And so again, I think it just bolds the conversation for healing purposes. People that went through this, you know, what is the best ways to heal, and sometimes letting go and not knowing and just letting go and focusing only on your self and your current I am experience is the best, without all of this reintegration of all of these different factors, because the oversoul doesn't look at you that way anyway. It doesn't expect you to feel all the different things that are going on all around you, of all of the different expressions and realities that it's experiencing. You're only supposed to experience this one. So it's an interesting thing. The oversoul needs to take and separate out these things for people's,
Unless you are meant
sanity.
to integrate a certain thing, because there are some people that it's their path. The episode, by the way, is called the Rubik's Cube of Infinite Questionable Choices is the name of the episode. I'd forgotten the beginning part of that. And that's exactly what it is. But I also know somebody, unless he wants his name mentioned here, I'm not going to. I know somebody that had their SSP altar get thrown into another 20 and back because they kept doing it, took a shard, created a version of himself, but then his oversoul reabsorbed this and shocked the hell out of everybody in that program via their portal, this person's Asgardian aspect. And that re-entered the oversoul library as another aspect. And so, variation or variant, I heard the word variant is a slur, like the N-word. Why? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would be. It seems like it dehumanizes. From what I understand, I've been told that it dehumanizes whoever it is. They're not a variant. They're not like version A, version B, version C. They are who they are, and they are what they are within the mighty multiverse of madness. You know, that's the best explanation I come up with. They're not a variant. You're not the original, and they're like, you're not A and they're B. Okay, there are no A's and B's in this. They're both A's and B's. That's I know that's the best I can actually translate it. The further you go into the multiverse, the further even the falsehoods and the lies actually become truths. Just like they say the Elder Scrolls are in the Elder Scrolls. One of the characters in the Elder Scroll in the College of Winterhold library says, the Arcanium says, when he talks about the Elder Scrolls, it says, you ask him who wrote them. He goes, I can't even tell you how that doesn't even make sense. Even the falsehoods are true, especially the falsehoods. They were referring to the multiverse in that, because it was the Elder
Everything
Scrolls,
existing, everything.
everything.
So no, we've said this forever,
yeah.
that whether people want to believe it or not, you've done it all.
Mhm,
Meaning,
literally.
because if you think about the totality of your library, then that's what we're talking about. You've done it all. Now, sure, some of that doing it, everything is happening all at once,
Mhm.
because again, you are a part of something much bigger, the bigger you, let's just say, the oversoul you, which is experiencing bazillions of things all at one time, including your current I am present. So your library. So again, if it's not expected for you to know every aspect of what's in your cardex of your library, why in the world would that be expected of you when you are in some of these projects?
Mhm.
It does not make sense. It's like totally different lives. And again, I hate to say it, we said it before in that show, that there were people that whatever qualities that could be used, again, you were looked at as a science experiment. What can I use that you can, that is helpful to me? Not helpful to you, but helpful to someone else. And
It was always just helpful to someone
and
else.
if you had a quality or something that was valuable, you would birth a lot of different versions. If they, in a sense, so you think of birthers in many different ways. I'm birthing, an actual fetus child, or am I birthing a shard of a soul somehow that can be put into a different body to have a different type of experience? And again, you don't reintegrate as an avatar all the different parts of your library. This really should be looked at the same way.
Now, there are things that actually do apply to integration. Like if this version of you experienced those things and the memory was just kind of wiped or kind of suppressed, different story. Or if you're meant to pull those tools from the multiverse and reintegrate because it's your path why you came in to actually be that person that's helping self-correct. All right.
But for the
But
vast majority,
a vast majority, absolutely not.
no. So
So,
we do, again, we acknowledge that it could be it's the whole kit and caboodle. But if you look at it as a bell curve situation, the vast majority of people, because way more people were in these programs than people know about. And so the vast majority of the people do not have memories, nor should they have memories. And again, and hopefully the oversoul is looking at it as a totally different experience that it allowed to happen like other experiences in the library. There's going to be those few, less than more, way less, than more people who, were meant to remember something just to be able to explain the experience out. It's very difficult, especially if you're trying to hold on to something, maybe you should consider letting go of, because again, how the opposites are affecting you currently. Because it's almost like, if you're tethered to something, then there is going, just like in physics, when you have two things close together and they stay together, the goal is to balance out the energies. So if you have one of your personalities that was here and one normal one that is here, guess what? And you tether it, you're still going to try to do this. So let's say you're normal, this is abnormal. You have that tether there. Guess what? You leave normal. You leave it to balance out, to try to balance out. That's what that integration sometimes can do. What you need to do is sever.
yeah, and also what's integrated, I will mention two other things that Elder Scrolls actually brought in from the projects. When somebody's reading an Elder Scroll, they either go blind or they go insane. And in the storyline, it overloads the optic nerve, and they go blind. And then you see these moth priests, and they have these blindfolds on constantly because they're blind. Their eyes white completely out. They're viewing all this other input, and the optic nerve can't handle it after a while. So, or they go insane, and it's just like what we've said before. In order to not have that happen, you have to be surrounded by these moths. That's what I call moth priests, and it's like this weird filter that these insects have to basically that they're dimensional and they can shield all the infinite diversity and infinite combinations for a moment. That's what I feel is happening. And in the projects, they had a shield for people that were using the chronovisor and could actually, looks like it was made of light particles. That's where they got that from. Which I found that fascinating when I found that out. They even played a goof on this where they had Mr. Spock go insane in Star Trek, where he was looking at this really ugly creature called a Medusan, and he needed goggles to look at it, where this being was like so ugly it drove him insane. This is a play on the egregore monster for Montauk, but also the portal itself. And also, if you go into the Shivering Isles for that particular DLC, people that cross through that portal into the Shivering Isles, there's a guard standing outside of that, and these people are spilling out, and they are going insane as they're coming out of the portal. Where do you think they get these ideas from, folks? The gaming world is ripe with some of these declassified project anythings I've noticed, and it just keeps getting increasing. So that's a bit of game disclosure, but that's there. Go check it out. You will start to see these little tiny nuances that are actually speaking volumes. I've been saying, and I said this to Tony Rodriguez one time. I said the most mundane detail can speak the greatest volumes, and that is one of those things. They're hoping somebody notices that. And it's one of the most mundane, boring things you wouldn't get. Why? Why are they nuts? Because yes, is the god of madness inside that portal, of course, but the portal is what these people are hanging around the portal. Why are they nuts? That's how that happened. So I found that
you can kind of see on a whole nother level if you think about it. So here you got these oversouls, and they're allowing for a lot of this stuff. Let's just say. So to me, it's like shooting a silly string all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the poor time core and those other people's, because again, it's not just what affects our life and balance. So they just look at this oversoul's looking at its own balance, but then what all of the other ones who are intermingled and all the balance of that. So you got the poor time core and all these different people trying to keep a bigger picture balance. And it's like,
and you're even off by even one decimal point.
It's funny because the oversouls are like and all the silly string all over the place.
But you even
here are all the other ones trying to straighten it all out.
And here's a bit even deeper for you. Imagine you walk through the portal and 100 of you are doing the exact same thing in some other little arm hair little branch timeline. And say one of you gets lost in the infinite sea of madness. What happens? It has this domino effect through all those little fibers, which are all you. But also, having walked through there, you've created all of these fibers that now are affecting the very thing that you walked through and also caused you to walk through to begin with, the effect before the cause. So they're meeting what's known as a destiny paradox. A destiny paradox is you're meeting the very thing that then drew you there to begin with, and then ended up creating it. Doctor Who did this, by which at the Lake Silencio season, you see him dying, therefore he's locked into a destiny paradox where he always had to be there. But then he found a way out of it by faking the death and made them think he was inside of a suit. Now, the suit they show with a bunch of little people in it that looks like a big person, sometimes they use things like that. That's where they got this from. And suits that surround in that weird light I told you, like the moths. That's an actual thing, folks. They just put it in a mystical, witchery, sword and sorcery type of format like they did for The Witcher and the Secret Space Program and the Super Soldiers. The mutagens, the nanotech, all of it, they turned it into medieval fantasy in that. This shows how much that's infiltrated the fantasy and game realms. But the point I am trying to actually make with that is don't fulfill the destiny paradox. If you don't fulfill the destiny paradox, like I saw the show Timeline, where it was a woman's diary that caused someone to go back in time and screw up the timelines. Her partner says, don't write the thing. Don't write it. Sometimes writing the book ends up creating the whole thing. You put it in writing, you're solidifying, your brain is solidifying, and the timelines are solidifying. And there was one that I was discussing with a friend of mine today. Another concept, other than the destiny paradox, I was discussing the bootstrap paradox. Doctor Who brought this up in the Peter Capaldi era. How would they have known this if that wasn't about the actual time travel projects? We also, when you saw that episode years ago about David Tennant saying the Time Lord Victorious thing when he tried to wantonly alter the timelines just because he felt he could, and you said that sounds like the Montauk Project. It's because basically I can, therefore I should. No, That's that whole Time Lord Victorious bullshit. So you don't want to go that route. But with bootstrap paradox, you have the example they used was you wanted to go back in time and see Beethoven, but you couldn't find him. Where is he? He didn't actually exist. You bring the music back, publish it, and the timelines go off without a feather ruffle. History goes off without a feather ruffle, but the person didn't actually exist at all. You're just honoring history, or you go back and plant an artifact or something, as we've said in that type of discussion, and get it to form a history, when in fact something may not have existed at all. So that's a bootstrap paradox. Some of these things are bootstrap paradoxes. So I just wanted to point that out. Not all of it, but they do. They seated themselves in history because we already saw the history by which then they created the thing by which then created them. Stupid reference. Family Guy did the same thing with Stewie creating the very universal energy by which then he was born within. Loki did it, by which then the multiverse created a variant of him, by which then he becomes the god of stories and saves the multiverse. You see the concept? I have to integrate those others because people have actually been appreciative for me saying these things, because it integrates it into things they're familiar with. So these are the concepts that have come up in sessions. Like the reason you're here is by which then creates the thing by the reason you're here. I know that sounds weird, but all right.
But it is an interesting thing
Yeah.
because I can't remember exactly what he said as far as the discussion title,
Mhm.
but the concept of, is this a dud timeline or something?
Yeah, I believe. Okay.
What was
The
it?
exact thing was, I'm looking at it right now. Dummy timelines and dud timelines.
So
Yeah.
So I think the funny thing about that is that, well, doesn't that depend on your perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you could have gone somewhere and done something, the oversoul's allowed it. Well, it no matter how long it lasts, short or long, it's not seeing it as a dud. It's not seeing it as useless. It's not seeing it. So it's an
I called it the
interesting-
anus timeline, by the
But
way.
it-
So yeah.
saying, you know, a dummy timelines, dud timelines, you know, threads are thrown off all the time, but I think dummy or dud is always going to depend on your frame of reference.
Like variant, always on your
You are. So like
A and
I
B.
can see from a avatar's perspective, being sit in the chair, creating these other timeline variants, having to deal now with another variant of yourself being there. God forbid you think you need to integrate things that maybe you don't. And like I said, with the energies in your life that's supposed to be like this has now been pulled up to this, and maybe the outcomes that you were hoping from on your current lifetime aren't quite panning out the way the original thoughts were, let's just say. And maybe you would want to call that then a dud timeline because of what happened. But your oversoul's going, well, wasn't that interesting, right? So I think when we get into those topics of dummy timelines, dud timelines, it's a perspective thing. And then the ones that are trying to clean it up,
Mm-hmm.
when you think of dummy timelines, dud timelines,
Yeah.
that they're trying to look at
What's useful?
What's not from their perspective, with all of these different, I call them again, shooting the silly string cans by the oversouls, and what needs to be, cleaned up, what they shouldn't do, and things like that.
Like the character of Clue in Tron Legacy wanting to clean up the grid because it looked imperfect to him. That is a Kabbalist mentality. That the same with Thanos. That is a Kabbalist mentality. In the newer Thanos, not the comic Thanos. Thanos in the comic did it for love. Thanos in the movies did it for domination and control.
Yes.
So
I'm interested about whomever's coming in talking about these things. I mean, because, and I'm sure some people we lost within the first minute of the show as far as this conversation. It's like,
also
nuts.
a funny reference though, Futurama, when they go to a parallel universe, both Fries are talking to each other, and they go, well, this is universe A. We'll go up to universe A. This is universe B. And the other guy goes, hey, wait a minute. How come we're not universe A? And the other normal universe prime Fry goes, this is more of a B field to me. That's actually a clue right there. It's like, you would feel that way in someone else's backyard. This is more of a B. No, you're more of a B. That's a matter of perspective. It's their home, then you're in yours. And of course they're going to feel for it. One's going to feel like an A, one's going to feel like a B. So if we went to a parallel universe, we'd be like, this feels weird. This is more of a variation on a variation on a theme, yeah. But is it any less significant of an expression? No. So, who wants to talk this evening while we're recording here? True else, never conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So, Elena. All right. All right. Okay.
There's actually a lot of energy that it's just built up.
I know, because you know how difficult it is for me to translate what I just told you. So that is incredibly difficult, folks. You're getting both the is's and the is nots, and you have to translate that as a verbal fact. And I can see how quantum physicists don't want to leave the house. Okay. And temporal mechanics and such, you go nuts. So, all
So I
right.
think just for the first time, maybe some soul type level
Mm.
beings have decided, maybe I'm going to listen to this one because it's really, really, really high pressure in here.
Somebody said, okay, Spock, let her talk. Okay, let's see. All right. Actually, I don't know who that is, but okay. There's been a lot of, no, I don't know who they are today, but they're friendly. So, I pride myself on knowing exactly who they are, but okay. Elena? One could view the introverse as other universes too, like in your Jane and the 10 Rings, whereas they went to another universe. They said it was another pocket universe or universe, but it was really another timeline. In our case with Lonulus, it's another dimension. But there's all time space dimension. It's all relative. I know that's a joke that gets old, but working with the NDTF, you tend to pick up on a few things. And that joke definitely gets old, where everything is relative.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a pun that people want to slap somebody for using. Anyway, in this subject, yes, there are some things that this version of you has experienced, while others, yes, were you there as a soul? Mhm. Would you be able to reintegrate two versions of memories? No. There are ways to do this if it is meant to, and an emphasis on if it is meant to. Now, there's frequency involved in this as well, where you would say, if you had been here with us before, and you have, both of you have, if you entered that frequency, those memories would come back to you. He always compares it to the Malcolm McDowell Fantasy Island, where the daughter comes back to the island, remembers him, leaves, forgets him. That's actually accurate. Frequency differentials. You remember things in a certain frequency, like you remember some details of this conversation in a certain frequency, then you don't later, or only partially. He always hates the fact that happens, but it's a frequency differential. Now you have your CIA dumbasses with their cocktails that try to take the memories from, like in your Incredibles 2, where the one character says the other. It's not a exact science where they erase the boy's memory of the other girl. Yeah, it can take everything. Like when people have left the projects, they forget the thing they invented. Just like, again, your Welcome to Paradox show, where your Henry Rollins created a pad that could wipe memories. And then they got reintegrated and the person died. He did this to someone who killed his wife. The person wanted to forget their sadistic side, but then had no way to truly get rid of it because it wasn't part of the memory; it was part of who they were. So that frequency attaches to a memory, and memory is frequency. Frequency is memory. That is always true. regardless of the methodology of taking it from or suppressing. Now, if it's from some other out periphery areas, it's not always advisable to integrate. Now, if it's from the same view, fine, cool. But if it's not, excuse creepy creeper, wait a moment. Very creepy creeper, give me a moment. We normally don't handle these things, but all right, give me a moment. Now, in the instance of frequency being memory and memory being frequency, absolutely all day long. Or if something you're supposed to bring back because a government agency took it from you. If it's one of those loop jobs, let's just say, it gets trickier. Because if it was in a different brain, but it was still you, and it's still your soul that got transferred, and you get transferred in, the soul remembers, and if you're meant to bring it into this brain and encode and decode it, great. But if you have all these other variations from one of those projects where you're going through a portal, no. It's ill-advised to completely bring that in. Sometimes you get fragmentaries from someone else and you think you are that person because you're remembering. You're getting the engrams, like a Star Trek would say, memory engrams. Or your Invisible Man series, where the one character brought his brother back by integrating one of his brain or memory engrams into his own brain, bringing temporarily back the person. Yes, that can be stored that way, or a neuron like your Commander Data had in Star Trek, same thing. This has happened where somebody has had that put into themselves, and they've also experienced an is and is not because they are literally both people. Sometimes it's the oversoul wishing to experience most of the time, but there's also, how can I put it, past lives. There's also, this is why it's not advised to bring all of that in, unless you're supposed to learn from it. But then there's other expressions and dimensions that are happening in other parts of the universe. It is also in other parts of the multiverse. It is also a misnomer that you're supposed to correct those dimensions' lives. What happens when you act as a guide for those dimensions? You get locked into that experience, and guess what happens? You start to create more fractalizations and more paradoxical hairs, as he calls them, on the arm. You actually looking and interfering creates the very problem you're trying to correct. It's the effect before the cause. It's destiny paradox. It's drawing you in to then create itself, though therefore it causes more issues. It's that egregore of you grabbing a hold and pulling you towards it. It's roping you, as he said. If you get roped, you're not supposed to follow that. If you have an affinity, you're supposed to follow that. It's like if you buy a house because you absolutely have to have it, means you're getting roped. Some entity is pulling you in there. But what if that entity, in that case, is you? Then you're constantly having to correct those to satisfy the egregore's hunger. This is what this is. People have been misconstrued to go and look at these dimensions because they feel they have to correct and guide things. They're being pulled in by themselves of that opposite polarity, that monster, that egregore, that then eventually must consume the whole situation and right it. It's a healing effect of the Mandela effect. I hope you understand this.
Well, I do, and again, I find it interesting, so I'm curious about, again, your perspective of other things we were saying about whether it's a dud timeline or not is a matter of, I think, perspective. You agree with that?
None are duds per se. He laughingly nicknames his experience, him and his friend Richie nicknamed this experience the anus timeline, where things just haven't been coming together, you see. Forgetting the fact that you're already existing in a reality that has come together. He thinks it's like that Everything Everywhere All at Once after she's audited her oversoul, her daughter's audited her oversoul, uncreated what they need to create what they need to create, reset what they need to reset, because the multiverse was kind of falling apart because of the influence of that other oversoul, but yet the person's business is still failing at the end. That's not always a certainty there, but saying that that is the lane of that variation or that lane of that expression. That's what that was trying to say. Grabbing tools when necessary to correct an imbalance just like with that whole egregore situation. But then it got reset to the point where it was supposed to be. Now, but you forget what you do have at times. You go for what you don't have at times to try to fill a void, or to actually, because you want to be creative and come up with new ideas. That's what you're supposed to do. But to call it an anus timeline is comical yet unfair. Because as you ground and how can I put this? Resituate and reevaluate, you'll find that the flow is drawing you towards the thing that you were meant to be at, if you just allow it to. Yes, people always say surrender the flow. I wouldn't recommend that verbiage or that. You never surrender. What you do is you allow the flow, the boat to flow on that river towards the thing that is meant to. Now, are there blockages and dams along the way that beings will try to direct you towards the false things? Absolutely. It happens all the time. But when people use the verbiage, oh, this is the anus timeline, what does that actually signify? That your life is shit. Sorry, it's in the verbiage. And I'm not going to be a new ager telling you that it's always the verbiage, because it's also the intention too. As comical as this is, it is not recommended that you continue to see your life as this unending whatever. Allow it to flow to the next thing, and you will see proof that that's what it was meant to do.
Right, and I hope he's listening to you. This is something personally we completely don't agree on. So I don't actually see our lives that way, and I hope he's listening. But to some of the comments that you've just made. So, but I do find the whole concept of this really, really interesting because of the dynamics. We've talked about this a little before, of how you can unwittingly allow yourself to get caught up in energies and other expressions of yourself that really do start to cause a unpleasant anal leakage effect, let's say. And so you're doing it to yourself by not kind of having an expectation that something is not a part of you. It's a separate issue that belongs to the oversoul.
Yes.
It's that whole energy thing I was talking about trying to have a tether to something that really potentially is not going to be helpful to your current energies that you're trying to have here. And so I was hoping maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Repeat that one.
The tether to something that you really should be letting go of, and how trying to balance the energies that you're now doing will be not good.
People will often do this. And that egregore that was spoken about, that would be you. That so some can dominate control, like your Dormammu character is actually Doctor Strange in a variation. But what is that egregore monster in reality? Of course, the collective, the focus. But what is it, or who is it, that is actually allowing the rebalancing? That would be the void. That then creates all of these via the tether by which was formed by these programs. There's always a tether. You've been in one, you have a tether. He calls it like an orbiting moon, but that's a tether. He sees it as like this orbiting orb of facts, figures, and things like that. Tether. Should you continue to honor that tether, or should you do the opposite of what that pull wants you to do? Normally, people think the pull is intuition. Like, what did I say before? By looking into the dimension, you're doing exactly what that egregore wants you to do, to fulfill itself, the destiny paradox. You do the opposite. You don't do that. You don't have to maintain those dimensions. Metaphysical and New Agers have been taught since practically birth that it is your job not only to awaken people, but your job to maintain as you go along, as you rise in frequency. That is one of the loudest, biggest piles of horse shit that exists within that medium. because you do the thing. You're actually by that creating the very thing that created the destiny paradox. Now, as your doctor who would say, time can be rewritten. Absolutely, of course. Time is rewritten by you not following the tether. Eventually, it falls away, and a new flow and rebirth is created. He always says in sessions, I feel something in the future has changed. Because a tether has just fallen away, and another variation of that egregore has just been uncreated.
So I guess to use an example, let me just try to, however you see yourself at this current present moment, or when you reflect on your life, how you actually see yourself. If you've ever spent any time doing a little bit of self-actualization to know who you are, are you a funny person? Do you like to people? Do you like to crack up and tell jokes? Do you like leisure time? Do you just like to sit down, whatever the setting is that you like to be in, be it a forest, be it a beach, do it, whatever. Can you and do you like the concept of downtime? That's my best thing to use right now. Downtime, relaxation, laughter with friends, feeling like time isn't being wasted, let's just say, if you're doing these things, and that you value it, that the downtime just helps you re-energize. Like I said, laughter, being silly, things like that. Can you go to an amusement park? Can you ride a roller coaster? Can you bring that kind of joy back in your life? The reason I say that is because for a lot of people, when they think again about Montauk or they think about these programs, this was serious business. This was all mission oriented. There was no downtime to enjoy yourself. There was no happiness. It was the next mission. What they got people wrapped up in, I think, is their joys became out of the success of the missions. But it was always mission focused, not enjoyment focused at all. And I think if you can reflect right now and you're like, man, I cannot sit down and I cannot find just joy and breathing the air or watching the birds or, feeling like that I haven't accomplished something today, or, whatever it is you're judging yourself by, that may not be you any longer. That may be actually a tether to a worker bee that had certain qualities that did not no longer valued what some people would call the simplicities of life. But you, as your current present moment self, really want that to be a part of your life, but you're now attached to a tether. It's what I was saying about
it's called escapism.
You being now, your energies are being now rebalanced into a way where you can't enjoy the simplicities of life, where unless you're doing something or again fantasizing about where you accomplished something or did something so great, again, be it memories from one of these things, that you feel that life was of more value than you actually value the current life that you're in. That is a big red flag that there is a tether there that potentially you need to be letting go of, because it really is now affecting your life in not a good way. And I must bring that up as an example. If you can look back and say, I used to, and if when you say I used to in this life that you really enjoyed it and now you can't anymore, and it's because of what we're just talking about, you really need to take a good look of it and really understand that you probably need to be letting go of it, because you're robbing yourself now of the life that you're supposed to be currently in.
Yes, there is a prime example he saw recently on someone's video who just had something happen where he dreamt of this purple woman that when he was under a DMT trip. And his friend also came in contact with the same being of a life he had out there. But also, what did he see as he was going along? He also met another version himself that was working on a Stargate portal for the secret space program. That he worked side by side with this other version to help him figure out the portal physics. This is one of the things. that we were talking about. The other thing with the other life with the other woman was his galactic history, their galactic self, and this other person was his spouse. So, and of course, he has an earthly girlfriend. Now, different from this is say if you were here on Lonulus with us for an extended period. That something worth remembering? Absolutely. Not saying as such. Now, unless it causes problem, which it isn't, for yourselves. Now, if it caused an imbalance, then yeah, it would be bad. But in that instance, that was not necessarily part of the regular SSP rabble. But the fact that he had to be looped back here because it would have caused an egregore because of the other thing, like what that man saw with the other version of himself. That whole loop had to be reconciled. So therefore, he had to be brought back here to come to meet the origin point. Now, if you guys were to come here now, it's not like that. But it was a nesting doll within a time frame, which actually was positive and is worth remembering and integrating. The other part, not necessarily so much. You see the difference? This monster would have consumed over here had this not had been reconciled. Now, what about the tether? The tether is really meaning to the unnecessary bits. There are necessary ones that are needed to open things up here and integrate it into what you call the benevolent Akashic grid or the butterfly effect. Some people need to do that. He did this already in some instances. The Lonulus thing is actually separate from the other, except that it got integrated into a nesting doll. And also the crossing of dimensional barriers then allowed for, again, that egregore effect. This has been solved now. So like I said, if you guys were to return there, you would not run into this. You'd be able to stay indefinitely. But what of the tether? You have to, it's invasive to cross the portal if you have one of those tethers. How do you rid yourself of it? As I said before, that is an egregore trying to create a destiny paradox. Let it fall away. Unless that is something that a memory that is meant to be used. You will know the difference between, as he says, a roping and an affinity. If it's an affinity, great. If it's a roping, do not. It's like he says when you went to Quartzsite one year and he was looking for a channel crystal. One, he was really drawn to it, but then he found an insectoid consciousness trying to get him to bring him home with him, or like one of those masks that you were given that was somebody was influenced to give it to you. Then he found the other crystal that he had an affinity for. Different. Same thing where people say, "Oh, I must have this house." Why? Why must you have this house? Why must you have this in this exact way? Why not flow to the thing you're supposed to? He says he's remembering things in reverse, a premonition about a house. I believe he's mentioned it, of a colonial style home. This is not necessarily a destiny paradox. That one is closer to a bootstrap paradox. Whereas he's not remembering or not seeing or not experiencing the context by which got him there. So it's similar to a bootstrap. But focusing and remembering that, something that of which you have not experienced yet, could be maddening. Because you don't know what timeline that you're jumping to get to that goal. And that's based in a frequency you are not experiencing yet. But yet you are, because it is such a joyful feeling. But in this case, he felt sorrow and loss. What is this both? It is both the shred of destiny paradox, bootstrap paradox, and it is and is not. But it is the oversoul and the soul saying, yes, there's something positive in that experience, but there is also something that you must know here in order to get there. How can I put this? Frequency here, take this, bring it here, and you automatically gravitate to it. What happens if you use those same travel portal physics and focus on that singular point? And you always say, go to the end and bring it here. What if you did that with a thing or place. What is that timeline of yours going to do? And pull you towards it. What is this spell? Egregore. You see what I mean? A feeling of loss because you felt that you're supposed to be in that spot. What is that egregore doing? Pulling you towards it so that you constantly look at the thing by which it is created. And I shouldn't say it is still you. People with high psionic abilities create egregores just like the Forbidden Planet effect. So that could be the cause or the definition. But I believe you understand.
I do. And again, it goes with what we say as far as manifestation goes. What you need to really focus on is not as much things being in it, not as much as certain people being there. But when you look at the dynamics of the interactions and the feelings of, let's just say if these things are what's important and you want loving, belonging, friendship, trust. What are the experiences you wish to have amongst the people, whomever you're with, and then allow that to drive your boat, not force a particular place or person or object into it.
Yes.
It's like, what is the experience that I want to have in my life? And then let those that are in alignment with that end up showing up. Hopefully it is family or whatever, but who knows? Sometimes we create our own families, but but let that drive how it all ends up becoming what it is, not specifically saying you have to have this whatever, or this house or this car or this person or however it's supposed to be. But what are you guys doing, saying, acting? What is bringing you joy? And then let it play out. I think that's what you're trying to
Yes.
what was trying to be said.
Mhm. Yes, this is exactly it. What was said to him by a friend. He was visualizing exactly how he wanted a certain manifestation, but it was a paradox because you cannot drag those other people with you, kicking and screaming, saying, "You are here, you are here." Yes, you can visualize dialogue being said to keep things peaceful, as someone showed him once. Showing a handyman showing up at their house and agreeing to fix a certain thing they screwed up. Different. You're manifesting a peaceful outcome. It's different when you are wishing for a thing and certain things and people to be in that manifestation, but you're undermining your own manifestation by then creating its opposite. You see, it makes no sense in the physics of it. You are creating an energy that is not to be because it is involving these other people. Now, if you are with the other person and you're co-creating, different. This is the difference.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Well, I don't know if we have hopefully answered, given perspective to the question that was asked today, but I think we've talked about a lot. I know a lot of people are like, I didn't follow much of any of this one, but it is an interesting topic. So any kind of last final thoughts for this show?
He had a thought in his head that he needed to put the person also on the phone there also asked about 3i Atlas.
Oh.
And so he's integrating this into this. He and I both say that there are a number of people right now that are saying, oh, there's codes coming from this. There's upgrades coming from 3i Atlas. There's all these spiritual things happening. Think Hail Bob for a minute with your cultist that came up that basically said, oh, they thought they were going home to a spaceship. How do you know they didn't? But right there with excuse, there's some interference. With this, the only thing that's happening with this, there is a crew aboard a spaceship that is coming in over dramatically slow into this system. Don't you think they would be here by now? Oh, it's coming. They're making contact. Nobody's coming to the system. They're already here. Nobody has to dramatically park their vehicle up to the earth like, ta-da! Ooh. That's what they're doing. They're dramatically coming into this system. Look at us. This is the slow awakening of humanity. And these people aboard this spacecraft are a bunch of dweebs doing this. They think that it is funny. That, people will see this and we're going to just slowly, dramatically come to the system to integrate and encode and decode this into people's brains. No. This, yes and no. Think of the paradox there for a minute. This crew, is one of those that is just coming in to do this. Is this alien? Yeah. There was one earlier that came into your system, but it was for the same reason. It was that ancient Mayan spaceship that came in years ago. That was the same. Excuse. This people saying, "Oh, there's an upgrade coming in." There's no upgrades. There's no codes. There's no turning carbon DNA into crystalline DNA. This was all New Age crap. I'm sorry. Yes, are certain things waking up in your body? Yes. It's kind of almost a form of a puberty. Yeah, you could say that. Do energies affect the body? Absolutely. Do tides affect your body because the gravity and the moon, all that affect you? Plants affect you? Astrology, a whole bit. Yeah, some of it's horse crap, like some retrogrades right now are, this is affecting this, and this will always be negative, and you're never going to get out of it, etc., etc. Oh yeah, there's no hope that because Mercury is going retrograde, you're going to feel like shit. Wrong. Yes. Is there an effect it's having on you? Yes, but people co-create most of the doom during Mercury retrograde. Oh, it's another retrograde. We gotta just go. We're gonna be depressed now, and woe is me. Poo, boo hoo. This is what's going on there. Even Valiant Thor said this. But with 3i Atlas, guys, it's a spaceship. It's a spaceship with people on board that are being very, very, very melodramatic right now. Tell them to cut it out. You want to actually see them? Tell them. Do not give in to, they're giving us upgrades. Bull crap. No one's giving you upgrades. No one's giving you handouts. Except we will all work together to make everything better. That's theater.
So on the one hand, on a positive note, again, it's bringing awareness that there may be something more than just us here.
But they're being dramatic about it.
Right, they are being dramatic about this one. But every time this happens, it's about, I hate to say it because, folks here will jump all over it to control the information one way or another. But again, if you've listened to anything that we've done all over these years, this is a Tuesday because how many times do we tell you the skies are full? That between our own stuff that's out there that you think is alien, that isn't alien, that really is our stuff. And what's really going out there, and the fact, if you've heard us talk about the movie 65 and what was going on millions of years ago, guess what? It's still going on. No. So I think it's an interesting thing how I find how people are trying to utilize this event. Which is from the perspective of the people on the ship, them trying to bring an awareness, for people to figure out in a way that can't be stopped. But then you've got, all of the people jumping onto it, trying to spin the narrative or whatever. And, but guys, this is just one of many, lanes of traffic out there. Let's just say a lot of stuff is going on that you don't see. So, but I am all for if it's giving more people awareness and pause to think that there's something more than just us, and or that things are going on out there and not, and it's not just a blank slate, that's fine with me. But for us, we haven't really talked about it because again, this is just one of many, so for us, it's like, we're not going to spend any of these nuances that we know kind of aren't. It's like, how many different times do you have to hear that we're out there and other things are out there before you believe it's true? So this is just another example of something else by someone else just trying to lend their, efforts into helping people understand that there's more out there that you think. But again, certainly no savior.
Yeah.
So
Certainly no savior, and Spaceball 1 has now entered the system. So, with dramatic music coming in.
Right, exactly.
Also, another misnomer, crystalline DNA came from your ancestors. Those are the ones from the 65 time frame. Why you have carbon DNA the way it is because you're a mix. Will some crystallize? Maybe, maybe not. But it's not a point of evolution. It's you're remembering in reverse. Like Doctor Who says, premonition is remembering in reverse. In this instance, you are remembering, but you're pushing it ahead when it's something that's behind you. Like he always says, if it's an undealt with past, you think it's ahead of you when it's behind you. Like the Ragnarok, people think apocalypse. So that's really what it is. It's unreconciled past because you think you're seeing a lie of a evolutionary past or Darwinism when you actually came from out there. So it's unresolved. It's a lie, an untruth. Therefore, you're thinking it's ahead of you when it's behind you. It came from your ancestors. Nothing more. People think it's a point of evolution. Oh, 12 strands of DNA, 12 strands of chakras and all this. No, I'm sorry. Epigenic DNA will certain things unlock? Yeah, I will say. And when they say, oh, you're going to be compressed into a diamond. No, that's trying to get you to consent to more hardship. So therefore, you're thinking you're going to evolve out of it. You evolve the way you react to those situations, not the fact you're being compressed and oppressed and possessed. That's a whole lot of horse crap. So I just wanted to bring that up.
So Josh, I hope you like this show. I think it's not a simple answer. Whether you think something is a dud expression or a dud timeline has everything to do from where you sit.
That's also dud and dummy timeline, and variant is like saying muggle and normie.
Right. And again, I tend to believe if you think that you're looking at a dud timeline, it may be because you have a tether there that you need to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
That's really kind of dragging you down here. And so work on, I think, a better understanding of that and let go of what does not serve you in your current present moment, and get out of your heads that everything must be integrated, because that is what the oversoul is there for, to integrate it in a big picture. And you will, when you leave here, you will see the whole library if you're ready to do so.
And also, sometimes if you're wanting an escapism, sometimes it turns into a bit of a cult because of the energies, like the Hail Pop and the Heaven's Gate guys, where they wanted to go back to whatever spaceship they were on. And some things like that happen, yes, but some things do happen like that where people have a link to that. But when you get it into that egregorish type of situation, it's a destiny paradox, and that's what the Heaven's Gate thing was. It was one of those. So I wanted to bring up that. Now that those people actually go home, yeah, in a manner of speaking. But it was more one of those things, like it was one of those destiny paradox types of things. They were remembering another existence that coalesced here, and therefore it created their own doom, if this made sense. So I wanted to bring that up. So thank you, everyone. I will now detach. So. Oh, and remember, if a memory is yours or if it is not, do not integrate what it doesn't belong to you. Keep what does belong to you. Like he says, keep all the soul shards, parts, pieces, and energies and frequencies that belong to you in the here and now, and get rid of those that do not, like you did with the solar eclipse that time. So, and the codes and parts, pieces. So, I think. Okay, so that's actually quite interesting. So yeah, keep the topics coming. It actually works better turning a question that you've had into a show topic. This actually works a whole hell of a lot better for me, believe it or not. If you're gonna do a one-off like that, it becomes a show. I think that actually works a lot better than lists of questions. There's going to be a few of those too, folks. So we still have some that we have not worked with yet. I still have some that I have not put into a Q&A show. There'll be a couple of them, but just make sure from this point forward, for my mental sake, please put it in show idea form, because this seems to work out more smoothly. So, Joanna, do you have anything else?
Hope you found it interesting.
All right. I thank everybody for watching this episode of The Lifting. You're probably seeing this towards the end of November. When this is actually aired. So I now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.